Good evening, my dear students. Hello to all of you. We are back here again in the Sri Chaitanya Educational Institutions, the Bridge Course NEET 2025 for the aspirants of NEET 2027. And I am Dr. Anisha. Welcome you all for our today's session of Zoology. Alright. So yes, yesterday we had some of the problems, some technical glitches because of which we could not finish our topic. So here we are, we will be studying again, we will be starting our topic and we are going to finish the topic which we have started yesterday. So what all we were discussing? I hope you all remember what all we were discussing. We are discussing about the health and diseases. Yes, I am not going in detail about the health and diseases because we have already covered it. Some of the parts, some of the bits, some are the topics which I feel that you must have missed it due to the problem. So we are going to discuss that. Alright. So let's start studying. And yes, I hope you are very focused and very much towards your exam orientation. Now the thing is, here we are not sitting for talking or for wastage of your time. You are not here to chat with the others. You are here to study. So make 100% utilization of this time and this class. So here we are starting the session again, starting our class again. So get ready with your pen and paper. So start studying. Since we have discussed about the health and diseases yesterday, we know the definition of health. Yes. So the definition of health is not just the mere absence of disease or mere absence of any infirmity. What is it? It is the state of complete well-being of physical, mental, social and emotional condition. So that is health, given by this definition was given by WHO, whose head office or headquarter we can say is present in Geneva, Switzerland. We have discussed all these things. Now what is it about? The different types of diseases. Different types of diseases we have already discussed. We have discussed about the pathogens, bacterial, viral, fungal as well as the helminthic and protozoal diseases. We have discussed all these pathogens, and now what are the causative agents of these? Some of the bacterial diseases. Bacterial diseases like the examples, for example, tuberculosis we have seen, the cholera bacteria we have seen, gonorrhea, syphilis, these are all bacteria causing diseases. Viral infections like hepatitis B, HIV, arboviral diseases like dengue, chikungunya, all these are viral infections we have seen. Various protozoal infections, I hope you have made a note of it and you all have seen it very clearly. We can see that okay, so I'll just quickly make a note of it. Bacterial, viral, fungal, protozoal and the helminthic diseases. Alright, and few examples of it also we have seen. For example, bacterial diseases like tuberculosis and cholera. If you have not realized or if you have not written it down, then you can write it down right now. Viral infections, HIV and hepatitis B, examples I am just writing. Fungal infections like ringworm infections and candidiasis we have discussed. The protozoal infections like the malaria, the dysentery, all these are protozoal infections. Helminthic diseases, various helminthic diseases like the diseases of roundworm infection, tapeworm infections, as well as the filarial worm or elephantiasis. So these are the few names of the diseases caused by different types of the infections. Alright. So bacteria causing the tuberculosis and cholera. Other organisms like virus, fungus, protozoa and helminthic diseases are other organisms causing different type of diseases. So I'll just give you here for some time to write it down. Okay, So here we have done it again. I am very sure you all have written it down. Show me a thumbs up if you all have written it. I am very sure you all have got it correctly. All of you got it? Okay. Okay, Satya, I have written it. You all have written it, right? Right, very good. Very good. Okay, fine. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next part, that is the communicable diseases. The next part is the communicable diseases. Now, what are these communicable diseases? The communicable diseases, as we know, they can communicate or spread from the one person to another, that is the communicable diseases, and the diseases which are not capable of transmission from one person to another, they are the non-communicable diseases. Yes, you are right. So, communicable diseases and the different types of pathogens we have discussed. So, communicable diseases, diseases transmitting from one person to another, diseases transmitting from one person to another. All these we have already discussed yesterday. So, diseases transmitting from one person to another is the communicable diseases, whose examples are these. These are the different types of communicable diseases. They can communicate from one person to another by various methods. Now, here we are to discuss. Till here we have already discussed yesterday. Communicable and non-communicable diseases also we have discussed. These are the two types of diseases, communicable and non-communicable. Communicable, that gets transmitted from one person to another. Now the question is, how is it getting transmitted? What are the various methods of transmission of these infections? How bacterial diseases, tuberculosis can transmit, how malaria can transmit, they both are of different types. This is a broad classification. You may go through it, that the various methods of transmission are here. Now, what are these various methods of transmission? Through coughing and sneezing, feces, blood and fluid. So, if we take four broad methods of transmission of the communicable diseases. Now, what are these four broad methods for transmission of the diseases? So, these communicable diseases can get transmitted either by the process of these four methods. What are these? For example, blood-borne diseases, they are called as blood-borne diseases. Some of them are called as vector-borne diseases. Another is fecal route or fecal-oral route, fecal and oral route of transmission. And the last one, that is coughing and sneezing. So, coughing and sneezing we can call as the aerosol method. Coughing and sneezing or aerosol method. So, communicable diseases can get transmitted through these four routes of transmission. These are called as modes of transmission. How communication occurs or how the infectious diseases reach from an infected to a healthy person, either through the blood-borne method. Now, we will go in detail about these. So, first it is either the blood-borne method, the vector-borne method, the fecal-oral route, or through the process of coughing and sneezing, which we call as the aerosol method. So, let's start about these in detail, because these are the modes of transmission that you are not going to study in detail. Here we are studying these individual routes of transmission, how this affects, and this will definitely give you a clue how an infection reaches and which organ this infection is actually affecting. For example, first it is the different modes of transmission, aerosol transmission. Okay, so aerosol, or we can say coughing and sneezing. See here, during coughing and sneezing, number of droplets are produced. What are these droplets? Suppose, for example, through coughing and sneezing, one droplet is released. One droplet is released due to this coughing and sneezing, and this droplet contains millions and trillions of bacteria, fungus, viruses and many more infective agents inside it. This droplet, just single one drop I have drawn here, but such type of millions and millions of droplets are released when we sneeze or cough. So such type of droplets loaded with the pathogen is called as aerosol. So what happens when these aerosols are inhaled by a healthy person? Because through coughing and sneezing, these droplets containing the organisms or the pathogens are released, and when these aerosols are inhaled by a healthy individual, these healthy individual through their respiratory tract inhale them. These droplets, they will sublime. The droplet will be vanished immediately as it enters inside the respiratory tract. The organisms will be released into the respiratory tract. So it is like almost like a balloon. So it is like a balloon. It is almost like a bubble, we can say. This balloon or this bubble will be inhaled by an individual where they will burst. The bubble will burst, and the bubble containing the pathogens will reach easily the respiratory tract of the healthy individual. Such type of transmission is called as aerosol transmission, also called as the droplet transmission, as well as such type of transmission occurs through sneezing and coughing. So here in this diagram we can say through the sneezing and coughing, millions of these droplets reach the another individual. These are the aerosol particles, and these aerosol particles can directly enter through their respiratory tract, as well as these aerosols can also stick to the various places, various surfaces, inanimate object or non-living object surfaces. Now what happens? Remember this term is very important. The term is called as fomites. This terminology is called as a fomite. What is a fomite? Fomite means non-living object or an inanimate object whose surface contains millions of infective pathogens. So these surfaces are called as fomites. For example, in a laboratory, if you see a laboratory or a hospital, in the hospital, the door, the knob of the door, the tabletop, the surface, the bed linen, all these are called as fomites. Even fomites can be infective agents. So these aerosols can reach directly to a person through the respiratory tract, or these aerosols will settle down on the surface of these inanimate objects, and when a healthy person touches them through hand, through respiratory pathway, these infective pathogens will enter their body. So through the process of the inanimate objects, the transmission of the infection is called as fomite transmission, and this one is called as the aerosol transmission. So that is how infective agents through the coughing and sneezing reach any other organism or reach any other individual. Now what are the examples of the coughing and sneezing, or we can say airborne transmission? So now these are the airborne transmission. This is the aerosol or droplet transmission. It is also called as airborne transmission. Now what are the organisms that can transmit, or what are the infections that can transmit through airborne transmission? I am very sure you all know the examples. For example, yes, you are thinking right, the COVID-19 that transmits through droplet transmission, and like that other organisms, other infections like pneumonia that transmits, diphtheria that also transmits through the aerosol. So anything that enters through the respiratory tract, even the common cold also, common cold, flu, all these are transmitted by aerosol or droplet transmission. Alright. So common cold or flu, or we can say COVID-19, pneumonia, any respiratory tract infection is caused by aerosol or droplet or airborne transmission. Alright, so this is about the aerosol or airborne transmission. Now moving on to the next mode of transmission, which is called as the fecal-oral transmission. Okay, so fecal-oral transmission is also called as fecal transmission. It is called as fecal-oral transmission as well as fecal transmission, and in general terms it is written as through contaminated food and water. Okay, in general terms it is also written as through contaminated food and water. Through contaminated food and water, contaminated food and water, also called foodborne diseases. Alright, so these are foodborne diseases. Now what are the foodborne diseases here? Foodborne diseases means if the food is not properly prepared, if the food contains many contaminated components, if unhygienic hand practices are done during cooking or serving of the food, that causes fecal-oral transmission. Now we are coming to the details of how fecal-oral transmission is done. The fecal parts of any vertebrates or any humans contain many millions of bacteria, pathogens in them. So the fecal parts contain many pathogens in the feces. These pathogens through various methods can reach our body. How? Through the fluids. If the fecally contaminated fluid or water is there, in the fields, if someone walks barefoot, if someone walks the field barefoot, then also many parasites perforate or penetrate through the skin and directly enters the body. So that is in the fields. Through the flies. Flies, house flies, they act like carriers, mechanical carriers. What they do? They will carry the different type of pathogens on the surface of their body, the outer covering, the antenna, the legs, their body parts, their wings. They will carry these pathogens. And when the flies sit on a food or a drinking water, it will shed all these pathogens in that place and that will get contaminated. So that is how flies can cause the infection. And the fingers, if unhygienic hand practices are done after the process of fecal matter excretion, so if unhygienic hand practices are done, even the fingers can also carry this condition. So what are the various methods how the fecally contaminated pathogens can enter human body again or can cause different type of infections again? If they are present in the fluids like the contaminated water, the same pond water is utilized by many of the organisms, many of the individuals. So that is contamination of the water as well as the different types of fluids. Contamination in the fields directly through the skin penetration when we walk barefoot on the fields. Through the flies acting as the carriers, and the fingers, these fingers if we practice unhygienic hand practices, if we do not clean our hands properly, these cause the transmission of the fecal pathogens into our food and that causes our infection. So these are the methods by which fecal matter can reach a healthy human body through these various methods. The contaminated water, the flies, the unhygienic hand as well as the fields. Okay, so we are back after a break. So here we are, the fecally contaminated water, the fingers, the hands, the flies and everything can transmit the fecal pathogens to our food and can cause infections to our body. So next it is the modes of transmission through blood and blood products. This is called as bloodborne infections. Okay, so they are called as the bloodborne infections. Now what are these bloodborne infections? Who can tell me what is the meaning of bloodborne infections? Yes guys, can you help me out? What is bloodborne infections? Any guesses? Yes, you can see what all examples we have seen here. Yes, bloodborne infections. Who is going to answer me the first? What is an example of bloodborne infections? Who will be the first one to answer what is a bloodborne infections? Yes, I am waiting for your answer first. Yes, who will be the first one to answer this bloodborne infections? Okay, yes, stop chatting and answer. AIDS is an example. Sandhya, very good Sandhya, a very big clap for you. Yes, Sandhya is the first person who actually answered it, HIV. Very good. Yes, so what are the methods of transmission of blood-borne pathogens? Blood-borne pathogens are transmitting the infection through various blood and blood products. Now, what are these various blood and blood products? Through the sharing of the needles, like the sharing of the common needle or the syringes, sharing of the various accidental puncture from the contaminated needles, various broken or damaged skin, infected body fluids, broken mucous membrane, blood to blood contact. So these are the different methods of blood and blood products. Now what do we mean by blood-borne diseases or blood-borne infections? Yes, hepatitis B, someone also has said hepatitis B and C. Prabhavati, very good Prabhavati, that's a very good answer, and I really did not expect you will answer hepatitis C also. So yes guys, hepatitis C is another infection which is blood-borne. No, syphilis is not. Jaundice is hepatitis B, jaundice you can say. But yes, hepatitis B, C, HIV, these are considered as the blood-borne diseases. Now these blood-borne diseases, let's move on to that. Blood-borne diseases means through the contaminated blood from one person to another it will transmit. Now these infections, how does it transmit from one person to another? Through blood. How are we transmitting blood? Blood transmission or blood transfusion, it is not the only method. You have heard of blood donation, that is one of the method of transmission of blood, but other than blood transfusion, organ transplantation or organ donation is also another method of blood-borne pathogen transmission. Another method other than organ transplantation and blood transfusion, they are needle prick injury. These are called as needle prick injury, in which accidentally to a healthcare worker or to any person a contaminated needle or syringe in which this contaminated blood of an infected person is present. If it is accidentally pricked to a healthy individual, it can easily transmit the disease. So needle prick injury, which is 99% of the time, obviously it is the accidental injury. This is also called as needle stick injury. Other than that, there are other methods of transmission of these blood and blood products, like from mother to the fetus. From the mother to the fetus, there is transmission of the infection. Through sexual mode of transmission also, these are the method of transmission. So yes, the blood and blood products are the various methods. Other than organ transplantation and blood transfusion, there are needle stick injuries, sharing of the common syringes in a hospital or in a healthcare setup. If a single needle is not used for a different person, then one person infection can get transmitted to other individuals also, in which this common needle has been shared. So the common sharing of these syringes can also cause the transmission of the infection. So let's have a quick look at the various processes in which blood and blood products are transmitting the infections. Blood and blood products transmission, that is, first it is the needle stick injury. Needle stick injury, it is an accidental injury, remember this. Another is the organ transplantation. Third method of transmission is blood donation. We can say blood transfusion, blood, plasma and many other components, blood transfusion. Sharing of common syringes. Can you name some more examples of blood and blood product transmission? Another example will be IV drug abusers. IV drug abuser. What is the meaning of IV here? IV indicates intravenous drug abusers. Yes, some of the drugs are there like heroin and others which are sometimes injected in the body. Now these drugs when injected in the body, these are not definitely a sterile drugs or sterile injections. These injections are in common use. There is a common sharing of these IV drug injections. So these intravenous drug injections during the drug abuse is a very common method of bloodborne pathogen transmission. Other than that, tattoo making, again where a common syringe is used for multiple individuals, tattoo making, and there is the common piercing and needle sharing. Piercing and needle sharing. So these are the various methods in which common needle is shared among multiple individuals, and whenever there is common sharing of syringes to multiple individuals, there will be blood and blood products related transmission of pathogens. So these are the different processes of blood and blood product transmission. So here we have discussed again the airborne transmission. Airborne transmission is caused due to the droplet transmission, which causes the transmission of infections like COVID-19, pneumonia, diphtheria, common cold, flu, influenza, all these. Similarly, food-borne diseases, or we call as fecal-oral transmission of the diseases, they are caused by, where is it caused, how is it caused? Foodborne or fecal-oral transmission. What are the examples of fecal-oral transmission? Foodborne diseases. The examples of foodborne diseases are or fecal-oral transmission. The first one will be the cholera. Okay. What else are foodborne diseases? You can name anything like diarrhea, dysentery, and what else? Diarrhea, dysentery, and one more very important viral disease. You have seen it in individuals, in children even, poliovirus. Yes, you heard it right. Poliovirus is a foodborne disease. A fecal-oral transmission occurs. So foodborne disease or poliovirus is a fecal-orally transmitted viral infections. And many other bacteria and pathogens are present which are transmitted through fecal-oral route. Similarly, through blood and blood products, how they are transmitted? Through blood and blood products like sexual transmission from mother to the child, accidental injury which is called as needle stick injury, the contact between damaged skin, mucous membrane, blood transfusion, organ transplantation, sharing of common syringes as well as intravenous drug abusing, tattoo making, piercing and common needle sharing. So these are the methods by which blood and blood products related pathogens, bloodborne pathogens are transmitted. Now the question is, what are the examples of the infective agents which are transmitted by this method? So what are the various pathogens which are getting transmitted by this method? Yes, you have already named it: HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C. These are the common ones which are transmitted by blood and blood products. So we already have three methods of transmission. One is by aerosol or droplet, fecal-oral, blood and blood products. Now moving on to the next method of transmission routes of blood and blood products. It is the vertical transmission. Now this is another very important one, vertical transmission and horizontal transmission. Horizontal transmission means the transmission of the pathogen from one person to another. For example, I am staying here in this room. Now if I sneeze or cough, the pathogens will directly move from my body to another person and will cause the infection. This is horizontal. When the pathogen moves from one generation to the another, when the pathogen moves from one generation to another, that is called as vertical transmission, which we commonly see during mother to fetus transmission of infections. This is called as vertical transmission. Vertical transmission also known as mother to fetus transmission. Mother to fetus transmission is called as vertical transmission. Vertically, from one generation to another generation, the infection is moving. Can you name some of the examples of the vertical transmission? Who can answer me the examples of vertical transmission? Whatever transmission we are hearing, these are all horizontal transmission. So what are the examples of vertical transmission? Yes, that is my question, Anivesh. What are the examples of vertical transmission? Just think a little bit and you can answer. Little bit. Which organism transmits from mother to the fetus? There are many. Just at least name one. Think, use your brain, use your neurons little bit and you will get the answer. So yes, what will it be? From mother to fetus, cancer, diabetes, these are not infective agents. Okay, I'll tell you the answer. HIV. HIV gets transmitted from mother to fetus. Alright. So yes, HIV transmits from mother to fetus. Yes, HIV shows vertical transmission. Other than that, there are many syphilis. Okay, many other are there. Yes, AIDS. Who has answered this? Penchal. Very good. Yes, you are right. AIDS or HIV is one of the most crucial example of vertical transmission. The child gets the infection from the mother and many more infections are there like the chickenpox infection is there, that can also get transmitted. Other viral agents, other viral infections are also there which can get transmitted from mother to fetus. So yes, HIV, yes, all of you, most of you have got it correct. HIV gets transmitted from mother to fetus, which is called as vertical transmission of infection. So two modes of transmission, horizontal transmission in which from one person to another healthy individual of this generation of this area will be transmitted. But when it gets transmitted from one generation to another, from mother to the fetus, that is called as vertical transmission. We are moving on to another part of transmission which is called as vector-borne transmission. Now we are going to the vector-borne transmission. That means another organism will be utilized for the transmission of this infection. So it is the vector-borne transmission. Now what is vector-borne transmission? Vector-borne transmission is vector is utilized. Now what is a vector? A vector is an organism or a host in which the organism or the pathogen completes its life cycle. So vector are the organism acting as the host of a pathogen other than the human, other than the humans, in which the pathogen completes its life cycle. Okay, so they are called as the vector. So what is a vector? Vector is the organism in which the pathogen will complete its life cycle other than the host, other than humans. So they are another type of host which is required to complete the life cycle of a pathogen or a parasite. For example, the most common example of vector-borne diseases are malaria, various parasitic infections like malaria, filariasis, then it is the tinea infection, tiniasis, tinea solium and tinea saginata infections. All these are called as the infections of parasites or vector-borne diseases. Why they are called as vector-borne diseases? Because malaria requires the presence of human as well as the presence of the female Anopheles mosquito. You must have heard female Anopheles mosquito bite spreads the malaria. So malaria is a vector-borne disease in which the parasite lives or completes its life cycle not only in humans but also inside the mosquito. So that is why malaria is a vector-borne disease. Another example is filariasis. Even filariasis, or we can call in general it is elephantiasis, even that is also another example of another example of vector-borne disease. So now filariasis also requires the pathogen, the parasite responsible for filariasis also requires the presence of another host like a mosquito, Culex mosquito. So these are all mosquito, or in case of Taenia solium, they have a different host like pig or the cattle and the humans. So they have a different type of the organism. So these are called as the vector-borne diseases, in which a vector is required which transmits the disease from one person to another. So such type of infections are vector-borne diseases. So here we have discussed different type of non-communicable as well as communicable diseases. Non-communicable diseases we have to discuss it in detail, but about the communicable diseases we have discussed. So different type of pathogens which can cause communicable diseases or infectious diseases, different type of pathogens causing different type of other routes of transmission. Some enter through the respiratory route, some enter through the fecal-oral route, or maybe bloodborne and vector-borne diseases. So these are the different methods of transmission of pathogens. Alright. So these important informations you are going to apply, you are going to use when you are actually going to study the chapter Human Health and Disease. Now we are here for the non-communicable diseases. So what all non-communicable diseases we have? Non-communicable diseases means the diseases which are not transmitted from one person to another. Maybe they are genetically present, they are present at the time of birth, maybe they are genetic defect, inborn errors, or we can say they appeared or they developed during environmental conditions, pollution, or maybe they are present due to old age. So they are of different types. And what are the different types of these non-communicable diseases? Different types of non-communicable diseases are cardiovascular diseases, or we can say in general words heart diseases. So these are heart diseases or cardiovascular diseases. Cancer, chronic respiratory diseases. Due to air pollution, many lung infections can appear. Even due to different types of habits, smoking and other habits also, as well as occupational conditions also can produce respiratory diseases, which is another very severe form of the non-communicable diseases. So respiratory diseases, chronic respiratory diseases, diabetes, diabetes mellitus, especially diabetes mellitus type 1 and type 2 both. All these are considered as the 4 major types of non-communicable diseases. So non-communicable diseases, see like diabetes, it is not spreading from one person to another. Similarly, cancer or heart diseases are not spreading from one person to another, but due to the habits, due to the method, the weather, the environmental condition, the occupation and genetic factors, many more factors, hormonal imbalances, many things are there, as a result of which non-communicable diseases appear. These non-communicable diseases include heart diseases, cancer, chronic respiratory diseases and diabetes. And among these 4, the most common one according to NCERT is given as cancer, which is one of the major cause of death of non-communicable diseases. So majority of these are forming the death of the individuals, and among these 4, cancer is the major cause of death in the non-communicable diseases. So non-communicable diseases also as dangerous as the communicable diseases. Now these non-communicable diseases also can kill majority of the population if they remain untreated or uncontrolled. Now these other types of non-communicable diseases are hypertension, obesity, genetic abnormalities, genetic disorders, autoimmune disorders, and different types of hypersensitivity, or we can say allergic reactions. So these are the different types of conditions which are non-communicable. Can it be fever? No, Sriram, this cannot be fever because fever is also a transmissible as well as we can say a condition of infection. Normally, if it is fever, it is common cold or flu, all these which are transmitted from one person to another. So they are communicable diseases. Non-communicable are absolutely the one which is not getting transmitted from one person to another. It is the body's own infection, or we can say the body's own condition because of the living condition, the environmental factors, the genetic predisposition, hormonal imbalance, or maybe some radiations, anything. It can be anything which will cause these conditions. Different types of non-communicable diseases are there, out of which these four make the major category. Most of them, 75% of the non-communicable diseases are because of the heart diseases, maybe a heart attack, maybe a stroke, maybe any other conditions, cancer. Different types of cancer can be lung cancer, can be uterine cancer, can be cervical cancer, prostate cancer in males. It can be a different type of cancer causing death of the individuals at a very large scale. Other than that, chronic respiratory diseases, chronic respiratory diseases which leads to obstruction of the airway and causes difficulty in breathing. So that can be due to pollution, due to the living habits, or due to some kind of genetic disposition. Those are the conditions. As well as diabetes, which is imbalance of the hormone. Which hormone is responsible? Yes, it is insulin hormone. Insulin hormone deficiency can be due to at the early age, some of the conditions, genetic conditions might be there, or maybe due to old age, the beta cells do not function properly and cause the diabetes mellitus. So both type 1 and type 2 diabetes you are going to study in detail when you are going to study the chapter in hormonal imbalances. So all of these are the conditions which cause non-communicable diseases. And other than these, majority of the conditions are these. Other than this, hypertension, that is high blood pressure, obesity is a very major condition right now. Genetic disorders, different types of genetic disorders like the Down syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome, and many more you can name. Autoimmune disorders, again hypersensitivity and autoimmune disorders you are going to study. Even I would also like to add some mental and neurological disorders. Mental and neurological disorders. So all these contribute to the part of non-communicable diseases. Can diabetes transmit from parental to next generation? These are called as genetic predisposition. They can be genetically predisposed, means they have a higher chances of occurring diabetes if they do not maintain their diet habit properly. But it is not transmitted from one generation to another. No, this is not a vertical transmission of diabetes. Okay, remember this. Vertical transmission is an infective agent. Infection directly cross the mother's placenta and reach the fetus. That is vertical transmission. The transmission over here from one generation to another through disposition, genetic disorders, definitely not vertical transmission. Genetic disorders are not vertical transmissions. Okay, so this all together forms the non-communicable disorders. So here we have some questions. Now it is time for the question answers. Which among the following are vector-borne diseases? Vector-borne diseases, we require vectors for the transmission of these diseases. Yes, who is going to answer first? The vector-borne diseases. The vector-borne diseases are, the first one is, yes, you are right, malaria. Malaria is a vector-borne disease. Yes, you all are right, very good. Diseases spreading through fecal-oral transmission. Now, the second question, answer the second question correctly. The fecal-oral transmission occurs. What will be the answer for the second question? I have not got the second question answer yet. The second question answer will be, okay, now it's the time for the second question. No, not cholera, it is cholera, dysentery, polio. So the answer will be all of these. We have the option all of these. Yes, very good all of you. Head office of WHO, where is it located? Head office of WHO. WHO head office is, WHO head office, okay, I'll tell you the answer. You already know the answer is Geneva. Now read these two statements. Okay, the statements are here. Read them. Statement 1 says, health is a state of complete well-being of physical, mental and emotional, social well-being only. Statement 2, being free from diseases only is called health. No other factors play any role in being healthy. So what will be the answer? Which statement is correct? Both the statements are correct. 1 is correct, 2 is incorrect. What will be the answer? Okay, I'll tell you here. Health is a state of complete well-being of physical, mental and emotional and social well-being. That is also correct. And also free from disease, free from any kind of infections. So yes, this has to be added at this statement, and being free from diseases only is called health. No, even this also is incorrect. So both these statements are incorrect, incomplete statements. Assertion, diabetes, these are very important ones. Diabetes and cardiovascular diseases spread from one person to another through blood and blood products. Is it so? Do they transmit from one person to another through blood and blood products? No, definitely not. And diabetes and cardiovascular diseases are non-communicable diseases. This is correct. So assertion is incorrect and reason is correct. So the second option will be the answer. Alright. Now coming to the next question. HIV is a communicable disease. Okay, that is also correct. It transmits from one person to another through various modes of transmission. Does it transmit from one person to another? Transmits from one person to another through the various modes of transmission. Yes. So reason is correct and HIV is a communicable disease. It is also correct but not the correct explanation. So the answer will be option number 4. Alright. So thank you all of you. Thank you for such a lovely class. Thank you for being there. And study well, be there and study hard. Stay focused. Do not get distracted here and there by many of the other things. Alright. So staying focused is the most important part. Stay well, stay focused, study well. Goodbye all of you.